so glad that you could come out with me on this walk in the beautiful forest.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wente. It's a path I know well.
Well, tell me a little bit about what you do here at Wake Forest.
So I've been here 17 years, and I teach modern and contemporary art history here. Art history is interesting because there's so many misconceptions of it. You know, a lot of parents worry with their students, like, what are they going to do with an art history degree?
I'll stop you right there. Yeah. I have a daughter who has an art history degree, right, so yes. I know what students can do with it.
So many things. We have those who go into the art world, of course, but also those who study medicine, go to law school, work in marketing, communications, any field that has sort of critical thinking and sort of interpretive skills. Art history really does a good job preparing students for those careers.
So you're talking about how you give students these great opportunities. How do you give that and bring that to life in your classroom?
I really try to bring home the idea that art history is the center of many different disciplines. So thinking about the ways it connects to history and politics and literature and philosophy, but also I'm in the process of sort of having conversations with colleagues in the sciences. So, neuroscience, what happens to the human brain when they're confronted with a painting? How does the brain decode those daubs of oil paint into meaning? What happens in the brain? And I'm also just became core faculty in journalism. And so thinking about sort of the overlaps of art photography and sort of photojournalism, and so the ethics involved in those sort of questions. And also, I think what I really hope to instill on a broader level is teach students attention. And so really trying to slow students down. I teach a class where we look at a single work of art over the course of a week for 3 hours, and how these layers of meaning evolve through sustained looking. And of course we learn a lot about art, but also I think it teaches them something about being present in the world and what it means to sort of slow down and really examine your social media feed and think about the fake AI photos that are populating our world, and how do you decode those? How do you realize what's fact or fiction? And so trying to arm students with visual literacy skills is probably one of the things I try to do the most in my classroom.
So it sounds like critical thinking, analysis, communication, collaboration, a lot of different elements I hear you conveying in terms of what it's like in your classroom and what it's like to do the scholarship that you do too.
Yeah, and so I got involved in art history. I came to Duke, and I root for the Deacons. Don't worry.
I don't see any blue on you anywhere.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of gold. But I was going to be a poli-sci major and work in politics in Washington. And then I realized through taking the equivalent of a divisional that art history is a place where you can talk about politics. If politics is the shaping of perception, what can be more political than examining the visual world around us? I've done a lot of work on art in the Cold War and thinking about, the ways, say, those famous images that spurred the Cuban Missile Crisis, how those had so much writing on them, like, the fate of the world.
Yes.
And so thinking about how those look very ambiguous and blurry, but how, like, the idea of certainty was placed on them, and these moments where art and politics and power sort of meet up and sort of have a conversation, as you will, that fuels all my work.
Tell me a little bit about what resources you have available to you to create the best learning and kind of scholarly environments here at Wake Forest.
So I've really sort of leaned into this idea of experiential learning at Wake. And so whether it's the Rinaldo House where we're walking towards right now, which is an amazing collection of American art, the Haynes Gallery, other places that art is on campus, really try to get students in front of works of art. We have a great program where we take students to Venice every 2 years to study contemporary art at Casa Artem, the Venice Biennale. And also, of course, we have the Reese Collection Acquisition Committee, but the idea that we select 7 to 8 students, prepare them, send them to New York to buy contemporary art at the university.
I mean, doing this for a long time.
Yes.
This is not just over the last 5 or 10 years.
Correct. So over 60 years ago, this began in 1963. And so you walk through the Benson Student Center and other spots on campus, you'll see all the student selections. And so what's more experiential learning than sending students to New York City to become art collectors for a semester and buy works of art that will enrich the future students' generations here at Wake. I always think it's amazing to walk through that building, Benson, and see like what students in 1969 selected, what students in 92 selected, and it really is like having conversations with those students and what motivated them, what interested them, what was the most important issues for them at that time. And so it's a really wonderful teaching tool the process itself is a great resource, but also the works they bring home continue to enrich student lives here.
Yeah, well, I see that on campus. I also hear that a group of students from last year's buying trip gave me a tour of the exhibition, and they talked with such passion about how they had to make decisions and negotiate and compromise and to really focus on an ultimate set of works that connected in different ways. And it was beautiful. Well, when you think about the future, what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about sort of thinking, I just became chair of the art department.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your leadership.
And so thinking about what the study of studio art and art history means for the next few years. And again, really trying to get into this idea of experiential learning and arming our students with visual literacy. And also, I also love doing my own research on art and politics, and I have some research trips lined up in the future, and then bring that material back to the classroom. And the classroom is a great incubator for ideas.
I really appreciate all the work you're doing.
Well, thank you so
your
much.
Leadership on campus, and thank you for walking with me today.
Thank you for inviting me.